The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Fast am I, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say. We're open line, so the floor's yours. Yesterday was an awful lot about the assisted dying legislation that Dr. Allenson is taking through Tynwald at the moment. Also the issue of suspending the work permit system, exciting lots of comment. And we're still looking for the best toilet on the outlet. Well, not the best, well, not public toilet, shall I say. It's a mark of a civilised society. It's 8 minutes past 12. David's first with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. I just wanted to comment on the issue where the Chamber of Commerce and some of the government ministers now, the block vote of the ministers, is wanting to temporarily switch off the work permit system. Now, I've been in the construction industry, not now, but years ago on it. I remember people coming to the Isle of Man. I remember putting in the issue forward about cold calling when we had individuals. And I'm going to tell you quite a quick story of I went to the doctor a couple of weeks ago after getting an appointment, waiting for 2 weeks, sitting in the doctor's surgery there. A young fella comes in, must be about 27, 30 odd, Welsh thing on him, painter's overalls. We were the only two left waiting for an appointment. And he said to me, because I had my football jacket, and he said, "Oh, you play football?" I said, "No, not anymore." And I said to him, "Where are you from?" He said, "From Wales. I've come to the Isle of Man to get some work." And he was going on about going to travel around, do work, and get as much money as he can, and then get back to England or back to Wales. And the most annoying thing is, and this is going to happen, that's why I'm supporting Rob Collister on this and the other members who are against this, is he went straight to the counter and asked for a medical appointment, an emergency medical appointment. I didn't see him. I wasn't that interested, but I did look. I didn't see him and fill any forms in. But he got a emergency medical appointment before me. I had to wait another half an hour, and he'd gone in and come out. And I do worry about, we've had people cold calling, legislation is there, you know, we need to stop. People get caught on these sort of things that come from across, and the work permit system is not onerous, in my opinion. And I've yet to be convinced that temporary switching it off will not be the lights are out forever.
David, who's pushing this, do you think?
Well, it could be the Chamber of Commerce. It could be, I don't know. To me, it's fairly simple. If you're applying for somebody to become a professional person, those checks and balances are done straight away by the HR companies. But somebody comes to the island on the boat, on the steam packet, and we've had them here. I remember years ago, one of them was arrested and then put in prison. And then when they found out, got his details and stuff like that, he was deported back. But he'd already done a crime here. And it does worry me. Yeah. And we are a small island. And I do worry that people need to know who people are on the island. They need to know if they're employing somebody to provide services for them. They're not going to, not say they're all going to rob them, but, you know, take advantage of them. I would remember people being taken to a bank to draw out money to fix a roof, and we're coming into the winter weather.
David, somebody tipped that painter off. Somebody told him, go to the Isle of Man, there's work to be had. Nobody sits in the middle of Wales thinking, where can I go to get money? Oh, the Isle of Man. It involves journeys and a sea journey to get here. Somebody tipped him the wink, and the weak link in the chain is whoever is telling cold calling unregistered tradespeople, cash in hand tradespeople to come to the Isle of Man.
Yeah, and you do. I see it. People all the time on Facebook. They're saying we've had a lot of rain damage and stuff like fences and stuff like that. they're wanting tradesmen to do little bits of work. And I do worry about people really getting caught. And I know a lady, I won't mention her name, whether she's still living now, but she was caught for £28,000. And the fella skipped away, and we couldn't do a lot about it.
And that's the point, okay? You're grown up enough, and you've got sharp elbows to know these people. There are many people, as you say, elderly people, frail, vulnerable people, who will simply get conned.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's the Isle of Man's job, whether it's ours as a society or whether it's the constabulary or the government department, to protect the vulnerable from this. Yeah.
And Andy, the biggest thing is when legitimate companies have computers all the time, don't they? So somebody wants a professional job, or even let's say a tradesman. And we probably are slack of certain tradesmen. We need to make sure they're qualified. In the Isle of Man, you have to be a registered plumber, registered with the water, so it must be the water and the electricity department now. They keep the registers, and they have to have qualified electricians in the Isle of Man. You've got to be certified to do all this work. And I do wonder when people just do little bits of work there, and the next minute there's a fire or there's a flood, and then who did you get? Oh, Mr. Bloggs. He rolled up in a white van. The white van syndrome. I'm not blaming them all. But if they haven't got a name on their van, they're not trading, are they?
Okay. All right. Thanks, David.
Bye.
Yeah, good to hear from you. We're on till 1 today with an open line, and Neil's on now. Hi, Neil.
Good afternoon, Andy. Thank you. I very much agree with everything that David has just been saying, and I listened with interest to Tim Johnson's statement this morning regarding it on the early news programme, and his emphasis seems to be entirely on bringing people in, whereas I think the emphasis should be on retaining the young people we've actually got. When government statistics tell us that 30% of young Manx people under the age of 28 in work have left the Isle of Man in the last 3 years, and I've seen it with my own hands at our company. When 30% of them have left, then obviously there's going to be a slight gap in the working population. But the idea of just having an open house policy is going to be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, as Wolf was saying yesterday, we're always going to need medical professionals, nursing staff and people like that. But I think the work permit system as it currently stands is actually very, very good. Also, point 2, I did not like the way that Tim Johnson personally seemed to have a go at Rob Collister. I mean, Rob Collister, for me, is an outstanding MHK. I think he works very, very hard for his constituents in Uncan and island-wide. And one of the very few who at this moment in time, when the island is under pressure, seems to be acting in support of the Manx population. And people coming here, I'm surrounded by them, they seem to come here and think this is England. It isn't. This is a separate country, separate jurisdiction, separate legislation. Of course, there are common themes with England, particularly our shared use of sterling, etc. But we are an entirely different country. It's only 36 miles long by 7 miles wide, and I personally think this policy of trying to cram 100,000 people on here is not going to work.
So what do you think it is that government's not telling us? Because their mantra seems to be economic growth. Well, everybody wants that because everybody wants to get paid. But economic growth by bringing in 15,000 extra people, or however many it is, 4,000 extra workers. I mean, do you get that? Do you understand it? Do you believe it?
No, I don't believe it at all. I think when we're losing a third of our young working population year on year, then I think that is the crucial issue. And it takes me right back to the root cause, which of course is housing. I've discussed this with young people who leave our company. It's housing. And as long as wealthy investors are coming here, speculating on the tax, buying up huge tracts of property, renting it out at high rents, and the price of housing is extortionately high, young Manx population can't afford that, so they're leaving. Personally, I think, well, we vote these MHKs in to enact legislation on behalf of the Manx population, and I think we've got to a crisis point now where I think a speculation tax needs to be introduced for people buying up large tracts of property, and possibly in tandem with that, I would have a tax take of 80% on rental income, to be frank. That would solve the housing crisis in one go.
Neil, in Gibraltar, they have the problem of retaining their young people. Obviously, it's next to Spain. There are lots of things that the young people in Gibraltar can go. In Gibraltar, if a young person wants to buy a flat, and it's typically a flat, there's a 50% government discount available with strings attached, but a 50% discount, and that's how Gibraltar retains its young people.
Exactly. We need to have a similar policy on the Isle of Man. And what is irritating young Manx people I work with is they are giving up jobs and having to leave the island because they can't afford to live here. And our government is happy to pay resettlement packages, 14, 20, whatever, £1,000 for people to come in. And in tandem with that, they're also offering them a 3-year holiday on national insurance contributions, which obviously the public purse has to pick up, Andy, because as we all know, we have to accrue so many years' contribution before we are sort of applicable to pick up an old age pension. So those 3 years have to be picked up somewhere. And so we seem to have a policy whereby they're quite happy to force out young Manx people, see them all drift off, and replace their jobs with people from the UK, South Africa, and other countries. And it is causing a huge amount of unrest. I've discussed this with people in work, and our working people in there are on a war footing, an absolute war footing, at the mere suggestion that the work permit system should be repealed and have an open house policy where people can come in. Of course, the Chamber of Trade and Commerce wanted. David is absolutely right. They want to bring in as many people as they possibly can, reduce the wages structure, and increase their profit margin. And Mr. Cannon needs to start listening to local Manx people instead of totally focusing on the Chamber of Trade and Commerce and the strong development lobby, which is over here. You know, and I take my hat off to Rob Collister and everybody else who supported him. I think he's doing an excellent job, and long may it continue.
OK, all right, Neil, thanks for calling.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. I agree with Julie yesterday, says WhatsApper 232. This was about, euthanasia, this person calls it. It is, in fact, the assisted dying bill. The special person that she mentioned was my dad. The alternative we have is people committing suicide, taking their own life in far worse ways than in a safe setting. Regarding the costs, I'd assume end-of-life care is costing a lot more than if we have this service. The majority of people strongly want assisted dying. Well, this is the view of the WhatsApper. The majority of people strongly want it, as per a recent survey by the Ireland Global Research entitled End of Life Survey 2023. There was a lot said about assisted dying on the bill yesterday. And from the answer phone.
Hi, Andy. It's Kelly from Darwin, Australia here. You were talking about assisted dying, as you call it, voluntary euthanasia. The first place to legalise voluntary euthanasia in the world was here in Darwin in 1995, but it was later reversed. And now I believe there's only one state in Australia, Victoria, that has voluntary euthanasia. And when you come to think of it, we love our pets, they're part of our family, but when they get sick with cancer or chronic illness or whatever, the pet doctor advises us to put him or her out of their misery. Why can't we do that to people who want that? I know that my mother asked my sister twice to help her leave this world, but obviously my sister couldn't. We need to think about how we treat people with chronic illnesses and permanent pain. Thanks, Andy.
All right, that's from the answer phone, and thank you. Kelly will be in bed by now in Darwin in North Australia. Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I'm not sure if I want to be categorised with a pet, but I see their point, but it's a much deeper question than just, we want this, and there are other things ongoing. Interesting what David was saying earlier. Actually, do you know what? I was thinking the Slock Road, the people that have legged it from their car and they're on the run, it kind of suggests that the police don't know who they are. So I wonder, are they from here or not? Because the police are pretty switched on to the locals over here. Are these?
And they've not said what the car was, or and obviously there are certain things they can't tell us, but something's certainly going on there.
Interesting. Something else that David said that kind of tallies in with something I'm going to say in a second. An article which is showing more bad news for the wind turbine industry in yesterday's Guardian newspaper, which is titled Siemens Energy Shares Plunge as it Seeks Government Bailout, with Siemens seeking a €15 billion bailout to avoid insolvency following major technical problems with its Siemens Gamesa wind turbines, causing their share price to drop 70% since June. It's worth noting that Ørsted's Walney wind farm, the one that's visible from the Isle of Man, is made up of 80% of Siemens Gamesa turbines, so we'll see how they go. And Burbo Bank, which is the one just outside of Liverpool, is about a half populated by the same kind of turbines. But something that David's mentioned about work permits and things, Ørsted, if you remember a while ago, just over a month ago, they were facing strike action from dock workers around the world. And the further headline yesterday, while the longshoremen strike, Ørsted bring other workers from different unions to load ships at State Pier in New London, Connecticut. Striking workers say Ørsted promised them labour agreements, which Ørsted has subsequently reneged on. Instead of engaging with them, Ørsted has bussed in other workers from the Building Trades and Operating Engineers Union. So it looks like dodgy tactics being used with anyone associated with doing work for Ørsted. And meanwhile, in New Jersey, there's been several legal challenges against Ørsted have been started, including accusations that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management have short-circuited their own regulations to facilitate Ørsted's new project offshore called Ocean Wind 1. And there's another legal challenge which is quite interesting, an unprecedented tax break for Ørsted worth up to $1 billion. And for my mind, these headlines are begging the question, should we, as the Isle of Man, be going down the wind energy route, especially when you think about the huge financial problems that you've got Siemens, Vattenfall, SSE and Ørsted, and then you've got dodgy tactics being used by Ørsted, it appears, with their own workforce. I don't know, shouldn't we pause and just think about this sort of headlong trajectory towards wind energy?
Do you think this is not just part of markets go up and markets go down? Siemens Energy is a colossal company, and it has gone to record lows. Talking to the German government and banks about guarantees for these long-term projects. So the stock has fallen 40-odd%, I think it was, for the DAX in Frankfurt. But things bounce back, and the whole point of sustainable energy is this is a long-term trend. So it may go down, it may come back up, Julian.
Well, the problem you've got is you're having sort of head and gut punches at the same time, because you've got big problems as the turbines are getting larger. You're getting more and more mechanical. You're getting towards the sort of the cutting edge of engineering when it comes to, you imagine you've got something that's 2 football fields long. You can imagine what the leverage is on the nacelle as it goes into the gearbox. You've also got stories coming out that some of these, all the turbines, the generators, to stop arcing across the switches. You can imagine it switching on and off depending on how much power it's got and how much the winds are going. They're encased in a gas called SF6, which is sulfur hexafluoride, which I think is about 30,000 times more damaging to the atmosphere than any of the traditional things that you get out of a car. And there's a reasonable amount of those in every one of those gearboxes to stop arcing across the switch gear. Imagine, when you switch the light on, sometimes you might see a spark. So they put this gas inside. So when these turbines destroy themselves, that gas is released into the atmosphere.
Do you think we're going to see this Ørsted wind farm off the Isle of Man, Julian?
The point may be moot. I mean, if Ørsted's dropped so much, you've got Siemens, which seems to be 80% of Walney are Siemens Gamesa turbines, so they're obviously the weapon of choice. It may be that the wind energy industry is having some major problems, especially now. I mean, if anyone looks up, say, Burbo Bank, which is the one off Liverpool, with a capacity factor of 30%, you've still got to make up the other 70% just for the electricity. And then you've got to think about the other 4/5, which is all the heat energy that we need throughout the wintertime. So, when you start looking at it, it's a tiny fraction of what we need. It's 3 times the price of a normal fossil fuel generator like Bullrose. So it starts to look, when you start to zoom out, it starts to look really, really strange, the economics of it. And I think people are starting to realise that, it's going to break everyone financially. And at the end of the day, we won't have base load. Because where are you going to get it from? I mean, there's no talk about keeping Bullrose going. So when that shuts down, if we're reliant on intermittent things like the wind, we had a month or two of very calm weather. I mean, the whole of Europe had an unusually, well, not unusually. I mean, it happened in 1976, if you remember that heat wave, in 1995. I think 2006 as well was a particularly warm year, but not a lot of wind. So, this is where this levelized cost of electricity thing comes in. You have to sort of give a guess as to how much of the time these things are going to be working. But with a power station, it's 92% with a bit of time for servicing. So who knows what the weather's going to be next year or 2 years from now? They were saying it was going to be raining all week this week, and it's been actually pretty good. And
so you won't be selling your Siemens shares yet then, Julian?
Well, it's... if it was Marks and Spencer's or someone like that and they dropped 70%, you'd be wondering if they were going to close the door soon, wouldn't you?
All right. Have a good weekend. Thanks for calling.
Same to you, Andy. Cheers.
Take care now. And let's go to Sue's with us now. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Andy. I've had to ring. I've already been in the papers and I don't want to bore everybody to death. But listening to Julian there saying about he doesn't want to be compared to a dog. So I'm just going to briefly tell you Simon's story. He was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in July 2021. Within 2 months, he was paralysed from the neck down. And just imagine, the first few things that just come in is if you have an itch, you can't scratch it, you can't blow your own nose. You can't do anything. He had the added complication of a twisted bowel, which caused him a lot of pain, and he had to have an enema every day, a complete loss of dignity. Different people coming in all the time to help bathe him, clean him. I did a lot of it myself. I was a 24-hour carer, so it was mostly me. As time progressed and he got worse, he had pains in his chest, had to go into hospital to find out why, and it was because his lungs weren't able to breathe properly for him anymore. So then he had to have this horrific mask on, which, it kept him alive, but I was told it was the equivalent of putting your head out of the window and driving at 100 miles an hour, and he hated the mask. You had to breathe in time with it, so we had to time it correctly when I put it on him, and at first it used to make him panic, but got used to that, and that was on every night, all night, and sometimes during the day. Then he had to have God knows how much medication, and basically you just deteriorate. But he's already paralysed from the neck down. His speech started to go, so he became difficult to understand. I could understand him literally up until the last 48 hours of his life. He, at one point, said he wanted his food stopping because that was the only thing keeping him alive, and he didn't want to go on anymore. Eventually, he had this, I thought was a little bed sore, and I was very upset because I took great pride in keeping him right, and so did the nurses, and I have to say the nurses are excellent. But what was actually happening, and he was in so much pain, and he asked for more pain relief, and they said they couldn't give him any more pain relief because it would put him in a coma. So he had to put up with the pain. So people who say it's okay, we have pain relief, they reach the point pain relief doesn't work. And one of these points is when your body starts to decompose while you are still alive. And that is what happened to Simon. And he had to sit there on this rotting flesh and carry on living because this option wasn't available. And Julian, when you say I don't want to be cared to a dog, I have 3 dogs. And if I had a dog that couldn't move, was incontinent, and his flesh was rotting, and I didn't have it put to sleep, I'd be prosecuted. And yet you think it's perfectly okay for a human to go through this suffering. And I'm sorry, it isn't okay. And so many people in my position can't speak because it's too upsetting. So many people are going through this. It's not just motor neurone. I know it's all the other. It has to be a terminal illness. Please, people, read the bill. There is legislation in place. Yes, some doctors don't want it, but some doctors are for it, and they can opt in. The others are not being made to do it. They won't be leaving the island. And mostly palliative care is nurses. It's not your GP. The GP writes a prescription. It's nurses that do this. And the Royal College of Nursing has wanted this bringing in for the last 16 years. Look at the people who are living with it. Think about what it's like. And I tell you now, if this came in and I got anywhere near to the suffering Simon had in the end, I would be begging people to put me out of it. And I know Simon did, because he kept saying, I just want it to stop. And that's all I have to say. I'm sorry,
okay.
I've got a little emotional.
Sue, no. Sue, I think everybody understands perfectly your position. They understand the turmoil that you've been through. For the record, then, you agree with Dr. Allinson's assisted dying?
100%, and so does my family who witnessed all this. That, you know, I had a daughter still living at home who would be getting up in the middle of the night to help me with him when I couldn't cope with things on my own. My son who lived around the corner, he would come. I've had neighbours. I have had the most wonderful support from neighbours, friends and family I could ever wish for. But at the end of the day, no matter what the support, no matter how much morphine there is, eventually somebody is sitting in agony, couldn't lie down because he couldn't breathe. If he lay down, he would choke. He's sitting there in agony. They can't eat, they can't move, they can't do anything. He could speak. He sounded like someone with severe cerebral palsy. It was very difficult for him to speak, and I know some motor neurone people, they lose their speech. Fortunately, Simon could speak till the end, and I could understand him literally up until the last 48 hours, and all he wanted to do was make it stop.
Okay, I have a difficult question for you, Sue. Before Simon contracted this degenerative disease, did you have any thoughts on assisted dying?
I have thought about it, and I've always said I wanted it, but I don't, in complete honesty, remember talking to Simon about it before he was ill. It was only partway through his illness when he said, I've had enough of this, and am I allowed to say where he worked?
Yeah, go ahead.
He worked for Duke Marketing, and the TT, he thought the world of it. And in actual fact, we think the last 24 hours of his life, that's where he thought he was. He was at work. He was trying to plant the TT. And he had said earlier on he wanted to try and make it to the TT, and then he wanted his food stopping. Now, this is a legal way of stopping it. He'd said it then. And that means you starve yourself to death. Now, he told the nurses told me, then we had to get the doctor in to hear it independently. And that takes about 30 days to starve to death. So by the time he wanted something to that he got to the point where he felt it was intolerable, it was too late for the starving option. That's when he would have had an injection, or whatever medicine, if it had been available.
Sue,
honestly, we didn't talk about it prior to him being ill.
Sue, just tell me, and for people listening, have you come to terms with this?
I actually go out, and people have said to me they didn't realise how bad it was since I've come out publicly, because I'm always smiling. I almost become another person. I work in a pub, I work at the sidings, everybody there has been wonderful. I go in there and all this leaves my head because I'm at work and I'm having banter and hide it all. But when I am on my own, which is not very often because I'm not good at being on my own, I tend to go to my neighbours or I'm at work or I'm at dog club with good friends. But yes, I've come to terms with the fact that he is past. What I can't cope with is how bad it was and that nothing could be done. Even so far, we can't give him any more morphine because he will be in a coma. And at the time I said, well, bloody well put him in a coma then. He can't, he's asking for pain relief. But he had morphine coming in intravenously, both legs and patches. I can't remember the quantity anymore, but it was a huge amount. And it was unbelievable, apparently, that he was still awake when he was on this much morphine. And that's because he was in so much pain. And he's not on his own. I have spoken to nurses. There are other people who literally their body starts to decompose because we're keeping them alive and we're not letting them end it. Okay. Modern medicine's marvellous. It can keep you going when maybe you shouldn't be kept going anymore.
Sue, I know everybody listening will appreciate the effort it's taken to come on and tell us all about it, and I hope you start to piece things back together again. I know the good people at Duke Marketing are extremely conscientious when they deal with their staff. So
they were extremely supportive in every respect. They even offered to get him one of these machines that speaks for you, but sadly Simon had the most aggressive kind, and he was told he wouldn't have time to. He wouldn't have time to be able to use it.
Okay.
He was literally 11 months diagnosis to gone. That's all he had.
Okay, Sue, thanks for calling today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have you been invited to take part in the Household Income and Expenditure Survey? It's one of the most important surveys for our island because the information you provide is vital data for our island's financial planning. It helps us calculate our VAT revenue from the UK. Plus, it gives us a better understanding of the financial strains on residents, so we can support those who are struggling. If you've been invited, please take part. Visit gov.im/HIES for more information.
Mike has got the conister feeling. Because despite his busy life, getting the finance to sort some home improvements was quicker and easier than he ever dreamt with Conister Bank.
You got me feeling good, got me feeling good, got me feeling good, got me feeling good, yeah!
Ooh, and not even Conister can help improve his singing. Apply online today at conisterbank.co.im and you'll get the Conister feeling too. All loans are subject to status, terms and conditions apply, early settlement fees apply.
Your home is your castle, and we think that too. So when you're thinking of new flooring, think Castle Carpets. With over 50 rolls of stock and thousands of samples to choose from, let us carpet your castle. Call 842-480 or visit the showroom in Peel.
Welcome to the Ramsey Park Hotel, where there's always a warm welcome and something to enjoy. Join us for a James Bond-themed New Year's Eve with champagne on arrival, roulette and blackjack tables, sumptuous 6-course dinner, local band Sunset Jet, and an overnight stay. Just £265 per couple with fizz and breakfast, or £95 per person excluding accommodation. For more news on food, offers and events, call 818-123 or visit the Ramsey Park Hotel on Facebook.
Jump aboard the time train and take a trip back to the 1960s on Carnaby Street every Saturday morning at 8:30 with Isle of Man Railways. It's full of 60s hits and memories. On board the time train, Gladys the tea lady.
Right, boys.
Harry the driver.
Hello, crispy old mate.
Roger the fireman.
All aboard Isle of Man Railways time train.
Oh, and Raffles the dog. And of course you and me. You can win tickets for two for one of the Isle of Man Railways fantastic dining car experiences. Carnaby Street, 8:30 on Manx Radio, on AM FM, online, on smart speakers and all over the world at manxradio.com. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Customer, it's 20 to 1. We're live from Douglas in the Isle of Man. Open line today talking about Dr. Allinson's assisted dying bill and its progress in Tynwald. Perhaps also the suspension of the work permit system and maybe those listed buildings that may be getting knocked down. And by the way, what are they searching for in the south of the Isle of Man? Mike's with us now. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Andy. Just before we get onto the work permit, just to say, your last call, how brave she was, and I also believe in the assisted dying, because I haven't seen my father-in-law die in extreme pain. The work permit, I'm English. I moved here in 2001 because I wanted to live here. And I had a work permit. My employer had to get me a work permit. no problem. The reason they want to scrap it is because the employers don't want to pay it. Simple as that. I've got friends who've moved from the north of England to Australia. It's taken them 4 years to get there. Part of that was because of COVID, but the hoops they've had to jump through to get to Australia. And he's got the male has got a trade that they're desperately short of. It's a highly qualified trade. He's a welding inspector. He's an ex-welder, pipeline welder, fully qualified. And it's taken ages. He had a job, he was sponsored, all the rest of it. Our work permit is a joke, really. The reason people don't want to come here is the cost of living. We've got the wages of the north of England, and yet we've got the house prices of the south of England. Now, in the 70s, my parents moved down from Surrey to Wiltshire, just outside Swindon. And the Isle of Man has never learnt from the experience of the south of England. Once the M4 was open, etc., and it was easy to get to and from London, people were moving out, insurance companies were moving out into... Swindon was quite a grotty town that was being rebuilt. It was a very working town, the old rail works, etc., where I was apprentice. But it was coming up that all these office blocks got built and everything. And people were getting relocation packages, cheap mortgages through the work. And the locals were going, oh, look, somebody's just paid 25 grand for Aunt Sally's cottage, silly fools. Now, none of their children can't afford to live in the villages where their families have grown up for years because the values were artificially raised, which is exactly what happened in the early 2000s when I moved here. They raised so quickly. And now, like I say, if you're living in the north of England, you wanted to come and move here, for what you could sell your house for in the north of England, you're not going to buy a house over here.
So, do you think that the work permits? Do you think this temporary suspension shouldn't last, or should last, or? I mean, how do we find our way through this situation whereby there's a shortage of skilled labour on the Isle of Man?
Wage increases is as simple as that, and the employers aren't going to like it. It's simple that people cannot afford to move from England to here. If you're in London, probably you can. But the balance is so much different. The cost of living is so much different. Our utilities are dearer. I mean, in England, it is worse because you've got so many people selling utilities. They're always offering, I know from my family, to get offers of cheaper electric, cheaper water. The water board is selling electric, the electric board is selling gas. But they're selling it as cheap as they can, so they can't afford to do the maintenance. Now, when Thames Water was sold off initially to a German company, they did virtually no maintenance at all. All the profits went straight back to Germany, and there was water leaks everywhere because nothing was being done on maintenance.
Okay.
Because they can't afford to. They cut the costs down to the consumer trying to get their business. So, in one respect, it's better that we have a higher cost for our utilities, but still people need to be able to afford to live.
Okay. All right.
Able to afford to move here.
That's great, Mike. Thanks. You made your point. Thanks for calling us today. And more messages in. Yesterday, says Malcolm, I got 2 identical gas bills. They were in separate envelopes, obviously wasting time, paper and a stamp. Anybody else got 2 bills? Where are the Isle of Man Energy bills coming from these days? The mountain road was closed this week between Harewood Heights and the Craig and not reported on. Why is so much done these days in secret? Well, we did mention it was. We don't quite know what it was all about, by the way. Work permits, says D in Oncombe. I assume that one of the side effects of work permit system is that the government knows which trades and skills are missing on the Isle of Man and use that information to inform education. Or am I being too optimistic, says D. Regarding the conversation on assisted dying, I think we should have a referendum. I believe a majority of people living on the island will be supporting assisted dying. And Nick says, heart-wrenching. I feel very sad for Sue. I'd like to hear anyone else who wants to rebut the argument after hearing that. And Steve, a genuine, heartfelt, moving account from Sue on why assisted dying should be permitted in cases such as hers and her husband's. How can anybody say that they have the right to decide that people like Sue shouldn't be able to grant their loved ones a final wishes? Beyond me, particularly on religious grounds, says Steve. Thank you, Steve, for that. Just a quick word on next week. Teresa Cope, Chief Exec of Manx Care, is going to be on Mannin Line next Wednesday, the 1st, and the week after that, Monday 6th, that's a week on Monday, Rob Callister, Onken MHK, is on.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
All aboard for the Polar Express train ride this December. You've seen the film, now live the magic as we journey from Douglas to the North Pole. Meet the characters from the Polar Express, enjoy hot chocolate and cookies before you get to meet the main man, Santa. For timetables and to book, ask an adult to call 662525 or visit rail.im.
Manx Glass and Glazing can undertake replacement double glazing windows and doors for customers, support for which may be available through the government's Green Living Grant Scheme. To improve your home and save money on making it more energy efficient, call the Manx Glass and Glazing team on 674 573 or visit the showroom on Snugborough Trading Estate. An approved contractor by Construction IOM, Manx Glass and Glazing can transform your home with government grants potentially available. Terms and qualifying conditions apply.
Just Care Products for mobility solutions.
At Just Care Products, we have a range of rise, recline and fireside chairs to try. These are British made and perfect for people with mobility issues. With finance available through our partner Conister, come take a seat at Just Care Products. Find us behind B&Q or for more information, give us a call on
627 177.
At Isle of Man Energy, we're excited to offer our customers the Alpha E-Tech Efficient Hybrid Gas Boiler and Heat Pump combination. This state-of-the-art hybrid boiler causes minimal disruption to your existing heating system, making it simple to upgrade. Priced from just £65 a month and with 6-year warranty as standard, which can be extended to 10 years, what are you waiting for? Register for a free consultation at isleofmanenergy.im.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
And this weekend, a staycation package at Ramsey Park Hotel could be yours. This includes an overnight stay, dinner and live entertainment from Mamma Mia tribute The Dynamos, all happening on Saturday the 6th of January.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
Then make sure you join us for Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning when you'll find out if you're the lucky winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio.
It's 10 to 1. Gordon's with us now. Hi, Gordon.
Hello, Andy. I've just got to say, in agreement with the fella who phoned up a few calls ago about supporting that Sue and how marvellous she put over the benefits of assisted dying. Now, I've not told you before. There's some things I listen to, but this is what I feel strongly about. And I've sent a letter. I know there was an online thing, and I don't do online. I'm in my 70s, so... but I've seen my parents both suffer, and they My mother used to phone me up and say, well, can you not come over here and kill me? And now, my God, for her to be that upset, I'm getting upset now. It should be supported. That's all I'm going to say, Andy, because I'm getting upset.
I mean,
I have written a letter to the government because I'm not doing internet for their support. My MHK down here did send me a letter and the form that says what the restrictions are, and I could see no fault in that. What should happen is that anybody in their 50s and 60s, while they're compos mentis, should be able to fill in a form that if you can't do something that you want to do, now I live independently, I don't want my kids to have to wipe my bottom or anything else. I would put an end to it. And how nice would it be to be able to do it in dignity without blowing your head off? My God, I just feel so strongly about it, and I'm glad I've stirred my stumps and talked to you all. There you go.
I appreciate it, Gordon. Thanks for being with us today.
Right. Well, it's got to happen. It must happen. There are so many legal loopholes to go through, looking at this phone, the form. So we're not going to have our kids running us up the road, putting an injection on us just to get the money. It's not going to happen. Okay, I've finished my rant.
All right, thanks, Gordon. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good weekend now. It's 7 minutes before 1. David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I'm just ringing up about, obviously it's about the assisted dying bill as well, and it's really in relation to something that was said yesterday, and I think it's a very emotive subject, so I think it's important to get, the facts straight around how it's going to be administered and the consequences of it. And, there was some guy on yesterday and he was talking about the huge market that exists in body parts, as if, there's people stood at the end of a bed waiting for your loved one to die and they're going to whisk them off and rip out their organs and sell them on the market. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The thing is that there is such a very distasteful market in body parts. It happens in many different parts of normally third world countries.
Yeah, but hang on, Andy. Not with people that are suffering from cancer or motor neuron disease. Would you want an organ from somebody who's got cancer?
And that's the point. And that's the point. I agree. That's the point, David. Is we need to just make it straight that in other parts of the world that does happen. Nobody's ever suggesting that it would happen on the Isle of Man. Nobody's suggesting that.
Actually, with respect, Andy, some of your callers, I think, are suggesting that. I think there's a bit of scaremongering going on. I think that some people are ringing up, dropping little hand grenades into the conversation and walking away, and it's not only on the radio. You've got some guys saying that, this place is going to become known as Death Island. I mean, it's really emotive. One of your callers a while ago spoke about, people who, if they need sedation, they'll have to be given, 10, 20 tablets. It's ridiculous. It's misinformation.
And I think that's the point that we, I think, my opinion, and I've only got one opinion on this, and it is to take the emotion out of this situation, and it's to look at it very coolly and calmly and just to see where it's going to take us logistically, where it's going to take us, in our parliamentary process and how we're going to handle it. Now, it's going to happen at some point. At some point, Timwell will either vote for it or against it. What I'd like to do is to get as much information out as possible.
Yeah, but that information has to be factual information. There's not speculation from somebody who's read a headline on the internet and gone down a rabbit hole and decided to announce it on the radio, national radio, that, there's a huge market in body parts, that people aren't going to get proper sedation, and, putting all this misinformation out. And there's also a conflation of suicide and assisted dying. You know, they're not the same thing. And it's you know, people are making out that, you know, if somebody is feeling that they want to end their life, that they're just going to be able to walk into a GP and get it sorted. And the other thing as well is this misinformation about medics, you know, leaving the island. They might well do, but they're entitled to not administer drugs if they don't want to, and they have a right to do that, and nobody's going to sanction them for it. You know, it's like abortion. If a doctor or a nurse doesn't want to participate, they don't have to. It's going to be like that for this as well. I just think that we need to have a balanced, sensible debate without the highly emotive and reckless, you know, comments about, you know, with no evidence, that's actually upsetting people who have loved ones that are, you know, suffering.
Okay. David, I appreciate that. Thanks for waiting, by the way, and thanks for calling today.
No worries. Thanks
to hear from you. Okay. That's it. Thanks for calling today. Thanks for being in touch. Thanks for listening. If you're just listening to what's happening on Mannin Line, most people do. We're all part of that Mannin Line family. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Back with an open line on Monday. Remember, Teresa Cope next Wednesday.
WILD